flying high. That's the way that some fantasy managers are feeling after a big week 4 in Major League Rugby. On this week's episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show, myself and Maddie break down some of those big time performances and everything else you need to know to get back in the win column in Fantasy Major League Rugby. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 187 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much for Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in MLR. On this episode 187, of course, Matt Yee here with me, Ryan Yee, and boy, Matty, you got tank tops on, you got the guns out. I guess you're feeling pretty good. NBA playoffs are going on, but more importantly, we're in full swing of Major League Rugby right now, and we are just wrapping up week 4 in what is already almost halfway through what feels like a very, very quick season here. And we're flying through this and flying through everything that is fantasy MLR.
Yeah, you know what? I can't say I should be too pumped up. I haven't been doing too great in listener league, that's for sure. But what I will say is that we're going to try to make it feel like it's great. And that's what we're doing here. We got the LeBron James jersey on. We got the guns out. It's raining outside, but it's sunny in here, baby.
Yeah, there you go. Well, hey, and our job is to obviously, make all the fantasy managers that had success here this week 4 feel even better about some of the guys that they can feel pretty good about. And then for those of you out there who are looking to turn things around, like Maddie here, we are gonna have some few tips and tricks for you on this episode, including some waiver wire picks that you can keep an eye out for to hopefully turn around this season as we march through what is a shortened season but fun season of fantasy MLR here so far. So again, going to fully break down the exciting week 4 that we had, of course, over the weekend, get into that waiver wire breakdown, giving you a option at each position that is under 50% owned that you can lay down some money, maybe even talk some drop candidates after now we are getting a clearer picture of what we may be seeing here on a week-to-week basis on how teams are kind of composing their teams, the starting squads that they're coming out with, and all that good stuff. And of course, then we'll look ahead to week 5, make our predictions for the picks heading into this week, and of course, then wrap it up with some TFR betting challenge. Vandy not on this episode. I know fan favorite here on this show, but with me out up in Bridgeport to cover some hockey playoffs, and Maddie obviously being out in Cali doing Cali things, just had to fine tune some things here and tweak and pivot here as we continue to bring you each and every single week a episode that talks all and nothing but fantasy Major League Rugby. All right, so before we get into the jam-packed episode, Maddie, hey, if you aren't already, follow us at the Fantasy Ruckers. Handles up above if you're listening on the YouTube video, down below if you're listening on the pod, in the description, again, at the Fantasy Ruckers, any of those social media channels, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. And of course, you can join our Discord community link down below to do that as well. Whether you want to join in on the fantasy MLR talk, whether you want to just talk about game day, whether you want to talk about betting on the MLR, it really has a little bit of everything for you and a great community over there. So the link to do that and join that down below as well. And make sure you check out thefantasyruckers.com, the official platform for fantasy MLR here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Like, subscribe, comment, interact with us. We love it, and all that good stuff. Alrighty, Maddie, let's get right into the latest news here on this episode 187.
News Dump.
All right, TFR episode 187 news dump. And I think there's a lot more to touch on this week, maybe a handful of storylines that maybe have gotten some updates, or maybe some things that we're starting to feel out, particularly something I want to touch on it talks about the referee review system. But first, we love to give a shout out to Accolades, Maddie, here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. We are a players podcast. We bring players on the show. We talk to players about fantasy MLR. And of course, we love the name brand line and talking about individuals that are excelling both on and off the pitch. And a person that's excelling on the pitch, Maddie, here in Major League Rugby, pretty cool to see. Cool to see at a marquee game that's kind of a little bit of a different vibe in Nashville that we'll get into a little bit more, which I was very impressed with. But Luke White taking the field for the 100th time here becomes the fifth Major League Rugby player to ever
Wow.
hit that 100th match mark. He joins Dylan Fawcett, JP Smith, Angus McClellan, and Moni Tonga as guys that will have hit that 100 match mark. Obviously, Dylan Fawcett is a guy that hits the top of there, retiring from the MLR this past season at 114, but now a former teammate in Luke White, most notably now hitting that 100 match, this being his 65th start in his career in MLR.
Yeah, you kind of forget how long this guy's been in the MLR, and just how consistent he's been for every team that he plays for. So, yeah, great for Luke White. Congratulations to him, and super well deserved in terms of his tenure here in the MLR.
Yeah, and this guy that's for a front row position doing pretty well so far in fantasy, 13.4 fantasy points, all coming off of the bench. And you might even say, well, that's
Wrong Luke White, Ryan. I think
ah, you wrong Luke White. What do
too
you
many
mean?
Luke Whites. Too Luke White's not a front row.
Well, listed as front row, I guess, in our database here. But either way, 13.4 fantasy points is pretty solid. So maybe that's something to tap into, as he does not have a start. I believe he was listed as a front row player, and a guy
Yeah,
that I
he is a
know.
front. No, mm, I mean he plays eight a lot, but hey, that's all right. That's all right. We just got to figure out the database.
One of those tweener guys. But really cool to see though either way. Luke White, congratulations. 100 matches split between hey, this is a name that's gonna ring true here, Maddie, and throw back to the days, the Colorado/Glendale Raptors. You remember those days? The LA Giltinis as a guy that
Wow.
was on that championship winning squad. And I guess now, of course, here with Chicago Hounds here, who are looking pretty dang good. The other piece of news, though, that I want to bring up, though, is kind of some changes that we've now realized here with the referee review system. And it was kind of passed upon in that first, or I should say, in week three. And I don't know how many people noticed it here in this past weekend of matches, but the MLR has now dropped down, I guess, to one challenge per team per match. So I guess they're tweaking this as they go. My opinions on the RRS and the challenge system in particular is obviously well known. My criticisms against it are obviously well known. I've made that abundantly clear on previous episodes and on the Discord as well. Whether or not the intentions on which it came out with are actually getting solved, I'm not too sure. I can go on and on about it. Again, this past weekend, at least for me, was just another example of how clunky it feels still. I don't think it really is solving anything when it comes to speeding up the game. And I think adding the challenge system just convolutes it even more. But they did reduce it down to one challenge, I guess. And that being a theme that now I guess that MLR is willing to tweak this system as it goes. However, you may feel it actually benefits the actual game itself.
Yeah, I don't understand what the I don't know why they're surprised. Like all they had to do was just watch Super Rugby the season that they had it and then just figure out that yeah, the challenge system is going to be difficult to implement and it's not going to increase the flow of the game. And I mean, I don't know. It's almost like who would have thunk it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going back to something, Ryan. I just realized that yeah, Luke White is playing front row. And he played eight last year. So that's kind of insane. Um,
Maybe some
I mean,
fantasy thing that you want to talk
that's a
about?
that no, I was just saying that's a sneaky little he might one day be a player of the week, team of the week guy because he's a front rower playing in the eight position.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's gonna happen this year.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Well, hey, anyways, yeah, don't need to dive too much into it though. Again, I don't know really at this point the difference between TMO and RRS outside the fact that now they just go to a sideline instead of using an iPhone to call someone that's off-site. Again, I still think that it's still slowing down the game quite a bit. But either way, to each his own, and we'll trudge through it. And again, hey, maybe it'll get more improved and better as we go on. But at least in my opinion, 4 matches through, still feels a little bit clunky, like I mentioned. And again, clearly the challenge system, like you mentioned, Maddie, something that is feels a little bit unnatural in the game of rugby. And I
Tried,
don't,
tested, failed.
yeah.
Move on.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Let's now get into, I don't, Maddie, do you have any of your sources telling you anything else before we move into a TFR commissioner's update?
Nope, but we can skip that, I think I heard.
No, we can't. All right, here we go.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, hear
All
ye.
right, hear ye, hear ye. Here is Supreme Commissioner Yi with a Fantasy Ruckers League update. Maddie, you can try to skip this segment as many times. We've done this 187 times now. Ain't gonna happen. This is my time to shine, isn't it?
Um, I don't think anybody. I don't think anybody
If we
anybody
took
was
a
requesting
poll,
for you to have a time to shine, Ryan.
if we took a poll, do you think over 50% of people would want this segment removed? I want to hear from the people. I'm a man of the people. I'm a supreme commissioner of the people. I'm a
See, you can't do that. You can't say that after requesting for their vote. All right.
go in there, tweak the results maybe a little bit. It's never
Yeah,
going to
you
be
just
50.
pretty much sounds about
Either,
right.
either way, just want to give an update here again as we continue to go through Fantasy MLR. It's been a blast, let me tell you.
Mm.
Like just to have this back, um, after obviously where we came from to start this season has been incredible. It feels so good. And I mentioned this, obviously, it was the title of our last episode, Feeling Good, but like every weekend and obviously just this week posting the next round of numbers and everything just to see people talking about it, the excitement of seeing how their team did and all that. It's been fantastic to see and just to talk about some of these guys that are excelling, especially from a fantasy sense, is just been a blast to break down. So big shout out to that just overall with everyone who's playing fantasy MLR this season. It's really cool to see all of you guys enjoying it. And again, if you have any suggestions to make it better as we continue to move forward, always open to hearing those types of things and everything. But overall, the sentiment has, at least how I felt, people are enjoying it a lot, and especially in this format, the North American style head-to-head type format is really good. So again, kind of the same sentiment though here as we move forward, same routine. Waivers are going to run this Thursday, free agency opening up on Friday. The announcements on any eligibility changes or IR changes. It's been cool to see, Maddie, and I'm sure it's been helpful for a lot of people. The whole availability report that's been coming out by the league and the teams about who and who is not practicing, kind of very similar to the NFL, where we can
Love
kind
it.
of track that. And when lineups come out and we saw that someone didn't practice and ends up not being in that match day 23, easy to put on the IR as a Supreme Commission now. Easy decision for me to make and helps out all the people because, again, I am a man of the people that loves to support that. So
I like to
should be
say
good.
that.
So, again, IR stuff's going to be coming out throughout the week. Eligibility changes are going to go out throughout the week. And then, again, same process as that we went through last week in terms of waiver, free agency, set those lineups, and we are rolling into week 5. All right, let's get into with no more time to waste, a recap of week 4.
Quick tap recap.
All right, quick tap recap, episode 187, week 4, full slate of matches, 6 teams playing, starts on Saturday with a 4 p.m. matchup with Anthem Rugby Carolina on the rise, up and up, doing great things, coming off of a big win. Lot of confidence heading into this one, welcoming in an Old Glory DC side that I know a lot of people have yet to buy into. Is this the game that has people bought into it? I guess we will find out. I know I was buying into the Anthem Rugby Carolina hype train, and lo and behold, bites me in the butt, as we will talk about here in the TFR betting challenge. But Old Glory DC holding strong here and continue to make a statement in terms of, hey, We may not have brought in the biggest names. We not may have not changed up the most this season like some other teams, but we're right in it, and we now sit 2-1 with a big time win over Anthem Rugby Carolina, who kind of fell short here, losing 31 to 14. Maddie, overall, is it surprising for you to see Old Glory DC kind of winning in this sort of fashion and being right there amongst the competitive teams here in MLR?
No, I think to me, like, look, Old Glory had to come after that game against New England. They had to come with momentum into this one, and I knew that they were going to do it. I think they were just going to carry this forward into this match. This was almost like could have been a tough one for them where they face such a good opponent in the New England Free Jacks and then play Anthem. And it's very easy to kind of come down. But with Anthem being so good this year, Old Glory DC, they knew they had to step it up. But I wouldn't say this is too much of just Old Glory DC being dominant. I think this also comes a lot with Anthem, having time with the ball, having time with ball in hand and just not making the most out of it. So yeah, like Old Glory DC, look, they kicked the ball a lot in this game, and they're happy to let the Anthem play the ball back because they knew that Anthem really weren't going to follow through.
Yeah, and I will say, watching that match and seeing how Anthem started out, I mean, talk about putting the pressure on. And again, to your point, Maddie, not really having any points to show for it. And I will say, like, kudos to Old Glory DC in terms of their stout defense to kind of hold that strong. But again, that's what I took away from, like, let's say, like the first 10 to 15 minutes was there was a series of, I mean, seven or eight, nine, 10 phases where they were looking really good, right? With an
Mhm.
Anthem sense. And there were glimpses of what this team can be and when they are rolling on all cylinders, the success that they can see, especially in this season. I think when you compare to any Anthem squad we've seen in the past so far, this team is by far better than anything we've seen. And I think everyone can, um, you know, understand and take a deep breath that Anthem is here to be competitive this year. They are no longer the laughing stock or kind of just the team that, isn't really taken seriously amongst that. Did it take us to go down to six teams for that to happen? Yes. However, hey, you only can work with the situation that you have. And I think Anthem was a big benefactor of being able to bring in a lot of talent that is now translating to the field. However, this is a match that's kind of a wake-up call that, hey, they still have work to do. And they do have the talent. They do have the series of plays that can often allow them to be effective and to be a team that can be dangerous and score a whole bunch of points. However, there are going to be times when they are making mistakes, and I think that kind of bit them in the butt in this one. A lot of turnovers throughout the match, as you didn't see those glimpses of really really good series, and that defensive really resilience paid off for Old Glory DC, and ended up again them capitalizing on it. And at the end of the day, they capitalize on more opportunities than what Anthem were able to do. And when you have a stout defense that is able to do that, and then you supplement that with an offense that is able to score points, you're going to come away with a win every time. So kudos to Old Glory DC in that one. Yeah, a really, really, I think, confidence building win here. Where now Old Glory DC sits right there now at 2-1. One spot behind Anthem RC here, but in that last playoff spot. But hey, that top four is, I think, really fighting right now in terms of the parity outside of that one team, which we'll get into here in this next match that I know a lot of people are talking about. Either way, let's talk about uh fantasy points here. That's what this show is all about. And when it comes to Old Glory and Anthem Rugby Carolina in week four, a handful of big time point scorers. We got to start off by talking about a guy that was pretty solid. And a lot of it coming from the back three and capitalizing on those tries. Perry Humphreys with 14.8 fantasy points and John Rizzo with 13.6. You throw in Ross Depperschmidt, who steps in that center role as well, getting you 11.6 fantasy points with the try that he scored. Pretty solid performance there by a handful of guys. I will say a couple guys to add to that as well. Max Schumacher at 10.7 and Aiden King both guys that are on my radar. Max Schumacher, when he gets the starting position there, I'm not too sure what's going on with Damian Hoyland. We saw him last week. Max Schumacher comes in this week. When he starts, I think he is an adequate play here, Maddie, in your starting lineup there because he looked pretty electric there. 10.7 fantasy points again for Schumacher, who scored a try, got a try assist, and 28 meters gain. And Aiden King has been a guy that's been pretty consistent for you, double digits in 2 out of 3 matches, 8.4 in the lone match that he didn't score double digits on. And again, double digits, at least 13 tackles in every single match that he's played in so far, plus a breakdown steal. So you combine those 5 guys that really perform for Old Glory DC, a lot of fantasy points to be had here.
Yeah, and when you have in the top six, you have five of your back line in that top six for the fantasy points scored in this round for this matchup. Yeah, you're gonna do pretty well. And yeah, I brought up Aiden King and Max Schumacher earlier in the preseason review or preseason preview. And I'm not surprised to see them doing well.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Tapping yourself on the back a little bit there, Maddie. But that's
Yes,
okay.
sir.
You definitely called it there. From the Anthem Rugby Carolina side, Connor Mooneyham, 11 points, large in part due to a try, kind of saving his fantasy point performance. In this one, he had the try with 44 meters gained, added 7 tackles to that, so pretty solid. Julian Roberts, I mean, he's been a guy that we scooped off of waivers, Maddie, in our OG league, and he's been very impressive. Obviously a back three player we've seen mostly, but he started the past 2 matches at the center position, and he's looked pretty solid, like very dynamic, very electric. He's a threat there with the ball. I'm very excited for him, and if you were able to scoop him up off waivers, I think he's a guy that you'll be able to lock in and play each and every week as long as he's getting that starting position. That center spot for Anthem Rugby Carolina, very interesting right now because obviously they
Mhm.
had Eric Storty starting at 15. They bring in Dom McKenna. I know that Junior Goff is dealing with
I
some sort of injury
yeah,
stuff. It's interesting the dynamics there for that center starting role.
I imagine the options get reduced now that Jordan Trainer will likely be seeing some time on the sidelines.
Yeah, with the red card that he received in this match, which again, pretty cynical there and something that you can't be doing. I don't believe it was a permanent red. I know that a guy that we'll talk about here in just a bit will obviously see some time off the pitch, but we'll see what the aftermath here is with Jordan Trainer. So either way, yeah, a lot of handful of double-digit fantasy point scores in this one. No team of the week players in this match because with some big time point scoring happening elsewhere, kind of getting superseded by some other fantasy point scores. All right, Maddie, anything else to say about this first match here on Saturday?
Nope. Let's go to the next one.
All right, next one was a fun one for at least one team. But I will say,
Huzzah.
let's start it off by the setting. Fantastic. Nashville hosting its first Major League Rugby game. I think it was at Nashville Soccer Club, whatever that is there. I thought that the venue was fantastic. The park was pretty full, at least from the broadcast sense that you could tell. I know that there were some people in the Discord community that are around the area that were able to come out and watch that match and see MLR for the first time. Some fans from outside of those teams come visit. I know that our very own John Payne, who runs the Rangers picks there, is was on his way down to Nashville. I actually caught him on the broadcast as well. He looked like he was having a good time. But let me say, the field was beautiful. I thought it was a great setting for a an awesome opportunity to kind of grow the game in a spot that obviously does not have an MLR team right now. Either way, the final score, Chicago 50, put up a 50 burger against the New England Free Jacks, New England Free Jacks 26. There's 2 sides to go with this, Maddie. I think we start off with Chicago. This is the match, and I get it. It's against a New England team that has been struggling to start this season, has yet to win a match yet this season, sitting at 0 and 3. But just looking at the way they play and the consistency they play with and how they execute their game plan, this is the reason why that they were miles ahead in terms of people. I shouldn't say miles. A majority of people were looking at the Chicago team, in addition to all of the new players that they brought in and everything that they supplemented with, that this was going to be the best team in MLR. And you're seeing now 4 weeks into this season that is confirmed. That not only are they the best team in the MLR, they are the best team by, at least in my opinion, quite a margin. And it's just by the eye test in terms of seeing how they play and just the way that they are consistently able to string together phases that are so effective and so well put together that, in my opinion, I have not seen from any other team here yet this season. And this was the match where I sat back and I said, you know what, this Chicago team is going to be a force to be reckoned with all season long. And I mean, I would I know it's a shortened season, and I know anything can happen. And out of all years, this is a year that it feels like any given rugby Saturday or Sunday, whenever you're playing, anyone can come out on top. This does feel like a year where the Chicago Hounds can have a perfect season, and as of right now, I don't see any team being able to beat Chicago right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they look at any time you can put up 8 tries on a defending champs, you're gonna do well and you dominate possession, you dominate territory, you dominate attack. Um, and the only thing you don't dominate is defense because you just simply didn't have the ball to play enough defense. So that's always a good sign. Yeah, they're looking good. And you just see the wide variety of names that are in the stat sheet and also on the fantasy boards. You really just get a feel for how many Chicago guys are contributing to this squad.
Yeah, and it runs down the board, and that's going to be evident here by week four's fantasy MLR team of the week. With how many Chicago guys are going to be put here. Again, once you put up 50 points, like of course you're going to be talking about guys that were part of that 8 try scoring effort. But yeah, it's impressive. Let me just say it's I think one of the, and I don't know if this is recency bias or me hyperbolizing all this, but honestly, this is one of the best put together teams I've seen having covered this game so far. And I get it, there's only 6 teams, the competent but it's I was impressed. Very, very impressed. Again, especially against a squad that I understand is probably not at the standard that they have been and what they expected to be here coming this season, the New England Free Jacks. But that being said, like you mentioned, Matt, they're still a back-to-back-to-back champion, and it takes a lot to put up 50 points against that. Speaking of them, though, let's get to the New England Free Jacks quickly before we get into the fantasy um, outputs here and the fantasy performances. Are you concerned? I asked you the same question last week. I know they have slow starts, but this is a different team and a team that doesn't have a lot of the names that you have had in the past. And I don't know, it feels different. For me, it feels different than what it's felt like before. And even in those losses that we've seen earlier in the season for the Free Jacks.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not concerned. That's for sure. I don't think we'll ever get accustomed to seeing this team lose like this. But yeah, it's hard not to be concerned, I think, at this point, especially with the shortened season. It's hard to just think like they could genuinely end up being the last place team in the league. And I don't think I would have ever thought that we'd be saying that this year.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. All right, let's get into the fantasy match, the fantasy performances, and we got some fantasy performances of the week to talk about here on the Chicago side. We'll start off by a guy that overshadows, I think, who many people are touting as a steal, even for managers that drafted him very high, and that is Theo Furry, who in this one got 11.2 fantasy points, again, capitalizing on that early try off of the set piece. And again, when you have the most consistent front row player that is playing around 60 minutes for you every single match, and he is a part of a set piece that is going to score tries like that often, he is going to be very valuable. And I had leagues that had him drafting in the first round. You might think that was crazy, but I think, I mean, having back-to-back matchups as a 10 point score is something that you're going to love at the front row position. That being said, though, not our front row player of the week. We got to give that to Charlie Abel, who out of nowhere comes up with an 18.5 fantasy point performances, 2 tries, 44 meters gained, 7 tackles, and using and showing off some of that athletic ability there, especially on that second try where he ran to the races and looking good with those. What do you call those? Like the ponytails, like the dreaded ponytails. I don't know.
Yeah.
But either way, it looked good while doing it and looked pretty fast there, scoring that second try.
Yeah. I mean, you love seeing a big man run, that's for sure.
Um, Yeah, pretty solid. So again, not something that I think you're obviously going to expect each and every week from a guy, but hey, if you had him somewhere, I don't think anyone had him started here this past week, and if you did, kudos to you. But um, yeah, he's definitely a guy that if you had him on your starting lineup, he was definitely paying dividends for you. All right, on the second row, got another Chicago player here to name in our team of the week, and that is Nathan Den Hout, a guy who I think a lot of fantasy managers were probably disappointed with in the first two outings here for a guy that was probably drafted as a mid to high tier second row player, but either way, paying off here in week four, where he scores 10.7 fantasy points, sets his season high so far with 13 tackles. And of course, like I mentioned, in that full 80, scoring that try as well for a total of 10.7 fantasy points and good enough for our second row player of the week.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, I
Makes me
think
good.
that's what we always expected with Nathan Denhood. He is going to be reliant on the try scoring, right? That's what he was
Yep.
last year with Houston, right? Is he going to put himself in the position to do that? He did that in this match, but when he doesn't do that, he's going to score you those low 2 points. But at the end of the season, his total fantasy output is going to be among probably the better half of the second row players. However, you're going to have to ride that roller coaster with Denhout, where he's going to give you a 2 to 3 point matchup, and then all of a sudden bust out for a double digit performance, which is always great to see there at the second row position. Other Chicago players to talk about here in this one, we do have Ruben DeHaas, who at 16.3 fantasy points, um, someone I'm going to be looking at here definitely on the waiver wire if he's available, and definitely a great player that has obviously the pedigree and the chance to do really good stuff, and he showed off what he could do in this one. Obviously, uh, the first 2 weeks not impressive with there, but if you're in struggling for halfback position, you need to take a flyer. Ruben Haas may be a guy that you can do that with 31 meters gained in this one, three try assists and a try to have the halfback that is going to be starting a majority of the match for you on the best team in MLR. That is going to pay off for you. And remember, he has a 16.3 fantasy point performance in this one. He had 2.5 in week two. He got minus 2.5 the week before that, which I think is really mitigating the fantasy ranking that he's in right now. But remember, that was large in part due to a yellow card that he was given, which would have boosted his points up in the positives to give him in the positive area. So again, among halfbacks and the struggle right now to get points scoring from the halfback position with a lack of kicking, I think Ruben Haas is a guy that you could probably look at pretty close. Again, Lucas Rumble continues to do it each and every single week. Now has two straight weeks where he's now scored over 13 fantasy points. Mark O'Keefe, 13 fantasy points. Brock Webster looks so good, 11.3. And again, probably overlooked heading into this year, especially with Santiago Videla being there. I know is a guy that I overlooked. He's looked fantastic. And then lastly here, Ollie Devoto as a double-digit point scorer. Again, consistent among consistent is why he was one of the top centers being drafted off the board, and he paid that a little bit off here with him getting his highest point scoring of the year so far with 10.9 fantasy points.
Wow. I mean, yeah, you said it all.
Yeah, there you go. All right, New England side. Let's just run through a quick. Wayne Vanderbank, 14.2. Obviously
Nice.
had that intercepting try in this one. Was probably, do you feel kind of, and I know you're a Wayne Vanderbank owner, Matty, you drafted him in the first round. Was this a matchup that kind of said, you know what, there is still that possibility here. It's not code red when it comes to Wayne Vanderbank, especially with Ben Lesage's situation now, who will probably be missing some time here with the permanent red card. People are going to talk about the kind of egregious nature of what he did. In my opinion, when I saw it, obviously not good and not something you want to see. I think it was completely incidental and not something that he meant to step on. I forget whose head, but it was kind of like just really, really bad timing with that. It was Chris Hilsenbeck's. And unfortunate play, obviously, in a team that is going to need Ben Lesage, their captain here in this one. But now you're going to see Wayne Vanderbank, a whole lot more of him, and he paid off fantasy wise in this one. Hadn't started to see a game yet this season, but now with this and his first start, puts up over 14 fantasy points with 51 meters gained, a try and 12 tackles. Got to make you feel pretty good as a Wayne Vanderbank owner, Matty.
Yeah, makes me feel good. And I mean, I didn't have much decision. It was just saw him starting, and so I played him.
Yeah. Sion Tupuo, front rower, 13.1 fantasy points. Kind of lucked himself into a try there to get him into fantasy relevancy.
That was a
And then
pretty
last,
wrong pronunciation.
how Sion Tupuo? Tupuo?
Sione Tupo.
Sione
Come on.
Tupo?
Yeah. Come
Okay,
on now.
say it with me. Sion.
Sione Tupo.
Sione Tupo. Got it. All right, noted.
Maybe.
13.1 for
I don't
him.
know. Who knows? We don't know.
And then lastly here, Ethan McVie with 10.1 coming on and scoring that try there again, kind of lucking himself into fantasy relevancy there. 50-26 Chicago. Again, looking like the best team in MLR. Anything else, Maddie, you want to mention in this one?
Nope, you covered it all.
All right, let's round out in the Sunday night rugby game. California Legion coming out with a, I guess, pretty resilient win against the Seattle Seawolves. The Seawolves looking dominant to start, but California just hanging with it. And this really describes to me the type of style that can pay off for California Legion. They are never going to be out of it because of the firepower that they have. If they are able to hold the other team and play somewhat decent defense. Over a longer stretch of time. Obviously, like how we did not see last week in their matchup where they got absolutely pummeled. This was a different story, and they hung with it, put up a lot of points. They win it 38-29, and in the process, having a whole bunch of guys we're going to talk about here that are fantasy MLR Team of the Week members.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, you look at the fantasy stuff, and I mean, you look at the top 10 and they're what, 8 out of the top 10 in this game. So yeah, they're putting up some good numbers here, at least statistics wise and fantasy wise. And you really love to see it. And you love to see them continue to get a win, proving me wrong. Against a solid Seattle side that I thought would be good. So this standing table is kind of turned on its head if you exclude Chicago in a weird
Hmm.
way.
Yeah, no, it looks pretty impressive. Again, and the story for me, all you need to do is look towards that point for and point against column. That really explains a lot in terms of how these teams are operating right now. Obviously, Chicago is leading with the most points for in this one, but also the second least points against. I think that just shows you the well-rounded game that they have. But you see California Legion tied for the most points for here in all of MLR after 4 weeks of play. I get it that they have that extra match on top of some of these other teams, but again, they have more than almost double of what Old Glory DC has. So I think that just goes to show you that in one last match, Chicago is doing even more incredible things. But California's also let up 121 points as well, which is pretty crazy to see. And by far by at least 6 points there. Anthem RC coming next as the team that has allowed the most points. Either way, though, they get it done in this one. Talking about some fantasy players here in this. We got to start off here with our back row player of the week, Ben Houston, 19.7 fantasy points. Obviously, going to be the biggest benefactor with Christian Poitevin out here, I believe, with a broken collarbone, which is going to sideline him for at least a decent bit of time, if not the rest of the season, which is obviously unfortunate. Again, all speculation, but with this shortened season, even to get into full match fitness, it's going to be tough. All coming off of that, but Ben Houston was the guy that slided into that 8 spot, and again, showing off that athleticism of what he can do. And that was evident in this one. Again, 19.7. Haven't seen him since round one. Wasn't in the round two match day 23, wasn't in the round three match day 23, but in week four, he puts up 90 meters gained, a try assist, 9 tackles, and a try in both the games that he has appeared in, now above 14 fantasy points. I mean, Ben Houston is going to eat. And I think, especially now that the opportunity has emerged, we were concerned about the back row depth and the kind of the rotation they were going to have. But now it is Ben Houston, Ed Timpson, going to be in there here on a weekly basis. And I think fantasy managers and owners of Ben Houston are going to be quite happy to see that at the expense of Christian Poitevin, who was obviously picked pretty high here on most teams.
Yeah. And I mean, Ben Houston, we knew was going to be stellar every time he touched the ball, every time he touched the field. And no surprise here, that's what he did, make a huge impact in this game against this win against Seattle.
Gonzalo Bertrano, our halfback of the week. Again, this I think is, or I shouldn't say
Recurring
half.
factor,
No, sorry.
the
He's our
routine.
scrum half of the week, I should say, at 17 fantasy points. There's a guy we're going to talk about later who had an excellent performance there at the halfback position. But this was the highest in this one, 17 fantasy points. This is exactly why you drafted him. And
Hmm.
he's going to continue doing this. And this is why you spent the high draft capital on him, especially in a year where kicking is not going to be counted here on a fantasy sense. Like Gonzalo Bertrand is going to be up there, if not among the top. And the only guy that he's behind this week is a guy that is just different at the fly half position. Um, and in this week, 63 meters gain, a try assist, just so attack oriented, which is always fun to watch. Center position, Cash Maluia. In the first game that he starts at the center position, 14.3 fantasy points, 102 meters gained, 12 tackles. Again, this is one that's so interesting because I don't know, obviously, how many people had Cash Maluia in their lineup because there's been the rotation of Meeks, Nick Chan, Cole Simu, and now Cash Maluia. It's going to be hard to try to figure out, but it does
Mhm.
feel like if for this California team, especially from a fantasy sense, whoever is starting has the opportunity to get a lot of fantasy points here.
Yeah, no, I think when you're on a high-powered offense like this that's constantly putting up a lot of points against good teams, and has to put up a lot of points, yeah, you're gonna see different guys get in there and get some fantasy points. So if you're looking for flyers, maybe California's the way to go.
Yeah, Corbin Smith is the last guy I'm going to talk about here from the California side of things. He is our back three player of the week, 17.7 fantasy points in his first start of the year. Obviously signed lately, the US eligible player coming in and making a mark right away. And he looked good while doing it. Corbin Smith looked fantastic. And we're going to talk about him in our waiver wire segment. 128 meters gained, one try in the 71 minutes he played. Corbin Smith was fantastic. And yeah, I think fantasy managers we'll definitely be looking at him as an option here this coming waiver wire. So just to round it out again, in a match that had no shortage of points, Houston, Corbin Smith, Gonzalo Bertrand, Cash Maluia, and Billy Meeks look solid at 14 fantasy points. Joe Mono owners are happy right now because he's been on the up and up each week now, back-to-back weeks with a try scored. Is he doing his best to shake off the fantasy MLR curse? And then Ed Timpson and Jason Dom 10.9, 10.3 respectively. And I mean, what a solid play. Not a pretty pick. And we picked him in the OG league, but Jason Dom, just like at the second row position, every week is going to get you around 7 to 11 fantasy points. It's like a comfy blanket bat. Like it just feels warm and cozy to have a guy that you're putting in your second row position every single week and you don't have to doubt it.
Yeah, that's what we talked about him. I mean, that's the main appeal with having Jason Dom on your squad.
All right, Seattle side of things, our halfback of the week, just outbeating Gonzalo Bertranu. Seattle Seawolves, Davey Kutzer. I mean, this guy's incredible. This is the reason why we picked him in the first round of the OG league. He's going to have, especially in a year that there's no kicking, because I mean, talk about if we had kicking involved in this season, Maddie, like his numbers would be even higher, right? He's gone three straight matches where he's had at least one conversion kick made. Two of those out of three have at least three. Four penalty kicks in round two. He's got one penalty kick in round this past round, two in the round before that. But he didn't even need that this one from a fantasy sense because he scored his first two tries this season, all in this one at 85 meters gained, and doing things that fly halves just don't usually do, and the way that he attacks. And this is why you drafted him because he had this X factor that when he has the ball in hand, he can do incredible things, and he showed that off here in this match against California.
Yep, I don't have much to add to that.
All right. And then just lastly, to round out some Seattle guys, Duncan Matthews. The question is not if he can do it. The question is when does he do it when he gets the opportunity, right? It's going to be a rotation, right, of him being at the fullback position, sometimes not starting with Devon Rousseau there and the depth that Seattle has. But when he does start at the fullback position, Matty, I know you're a big Duncan Matthews guy. Well, he did it this one, 17 fantasy points for him. And then lastly here, Patty Ryan. He's actually been a sneaky play. We picked him off waivers as well. 17 tackles in this one to get round out to 10 points for the double digit scoring. Patty Ryan, solid in this one as well to round out our top players from this week.
Yep, nice.
Um, Quick and easy, Matt, if you had to rank it right now in terms of, 4 weeks into this thing, and we'll do a more in-depth thing next week, but quickly, is the standings pretty indicative of what you think, or are you still kind of low on the California Legion here, or do you think they've kind of turned it around and have convinced you otherwise? What's your thoughts here after 4 weeks of play?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's guys that are wins and losses are what tell what how good teams are, I think. And yeah, Yeah, I think the standings do a good job in showing that.
Spoken like I couldn't. It is what it
Anyways,
is.
waiver wire.
Waiver wire. Let's get into it.
Waiver wire
Uh,
breakdown.
I bring you on this show to tell me that wins mean good, losses mean bad, standings is good, and is what it
Oh,
is.
I said wins are wins. You need to get wins, and the standings
Uh,
are a good summary of that.
just so intuitive, so intuitive. All right, let's get into this waiver wire breakdown. Going to talk about guys here that are less than 50% owned, and guys that you need to be looking out at your waiver wire. A lot of people are going to be obviously talking about, let's start off the front row position, about Charlie Abel. If you want to take a flyer, sure, but I mean, you're chasing something that's probably not going to happen again this season. He's shown, I guess, solid, floor, 1.9, but 4.2 in the first round. But again, I guess he has the ability to come out and score those two, or what is it called? Those the what I want to say
Tries.
here. The tries, the two tries that he said there. Maddie, is there anyone popping out to you on this list here of under 50% owned that you think should be rostered more than that?
Mm, a
It's
lot of
tough.
crap.
Front row is a tough place right
A
now.
lot
I
of
said,
crap, if I'm being honest.
yeah, it's it for me. I'm streaming front row in my listener league right now, and it's really just looking at the guy that is going to be starting off at a hooker position. And even then, you could probably get the backup hooker and do it. Like I went with um who did I go with this week? Did I go with Tonga Coffee? Yeah, or either way, dropped Joe Taufetti because he wasn't starting, and it's just such a crapshoot to be playing with. So outside of that, if you're left in a 16 league and you don't have a starting hooker, it's a barren wasteland to go at. But um, yeah, I guess Charlie Abel, if you like to kind of play around with that sense. I will say Ramiro Gurovic is under 38% owned right now. And he's a guy that at the very least has been coming off the bench, and I would even be safe to play him to come in there. It's been kind of disappointing to see Seth Smith obviously not get, and I'm not too sure what that is. I've heard that Campbell Robb has been an absolute beast in training as of late. But either way, Ramiro Gurovic, I guess, would be my waiver wire pick of the week because at least he is getting minutes each and every match and gets around those 40 points. But it's not a pretty scene to be had. Second row is the same thing here. But I will say there are some sneaky plays that you could probably get here when it comes to some point production for me going into this one. You could honestly think about guys that there's guys that are right around that threshold. James Scott was a guy that I was looking at a lot. Obviously, didn't play this past one, but has been pretty solid here so far. Sam Gala, I think, obviously not a waiver pickup, but he's a guy that's moved to the back row. So look at that second row position of who's filling that. And it does seem like the Will Sherman, James Scott part. The Thomas Caceres train has passed. But overall, though, interesting to see. I would say right now, with the guy that's available, that people can scoop up again a barren wasteland here for front row players. But Rob Harley, at 50% owned, not a spicy play, but he has the ability to give you, 3 to 5 points just because of his tackle floor for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, second row stinks. There's nobody there that you want. Let's move on.
Does this emphasize from the front row and second row, at least in heading into this season, that the game of streaming these positions is not fun and that drafting someone that you know is going to come in? Or is the point discrepancy still not like obviously people are going to say hindsight's 2020 and you're like, okay, like is the first round draft capital, second round draft capital on Theo Furry where he scores 11 points versus trying to crap shoot for a guy that's going to score 2 or 3? Is that worth missing out on a Davy Kutzer or an Ollie DeVoto? I think that's the big question here, right? Like,
I
because that's
mean,
probably what the people are playing with right now. If you drafted Kutzer, if you drafted some of these guys around, but again, and even then, like it's not a guarantee. Even then, like outside of Theo Furry, I wouldn't say I'm confident in any front row player. Like even like Campbell Robb, who everyone's been hyped about, still wasn't obviously that great in this past matchup. So like again, it's a crapshoot outside of one guy that was like that. And I could say the
yeah,
same
for those,
for second row.
yeah, for those two positions for sure, it does feel like that. But I guess we'll find out by the end of the year.
All right, back row position is where we get a little bit spicier. And um, this is when we start to look at some guys that I think do have a lot of value and guys that you can scoop up. Again, I'm looking for guys that are starting and are having the opportunity to really make a difference. I think in the past little bit, it's been interesting to see who is going to kind of sink in. But from drop candidates, like there are a lot of guys that are still owned that I would love. Like I think we can both be fair to say here before we get into a guy that we want to pick up, like Semi Kunatani. Is that a guy that people can kind of part ways with now? He's still 50% owned right now, and he's coming off of the bench. And I think people are still holding on to that hope that maybe he comes back to Semi Kunatani of the RFCLA days and just him being an absolute monster. But I don't think that's happening, and it seems like a long shot at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's with a short season, you just got to part ways with these guys quickly.
So the guy that I would like to own definitely more than Semi Kunatani, Piers von Dadelsson has been a guy that honestly I actually just looking at this now because he came in obviously with back row eligibility, but second row eligibility is coming in this week. Just looking at his database, he's my top second row pickup of the week. So let's
Hmm.
put that into play right now. He's got double digit tackles in basically every single of his matches. He fell one short in that. He's my top second row pickup of the week here. I'm gonna look elsewhere in terms of guys that maybe you are still looking at some upside with. For me, I look to New England as well. And I look at Alex McKenzie as a guy who has started every single match so far for the Free Jacks. You're waiting for the tackle numbers to maybe be more consistent. Got 14 in round three, got 7 in round 4. The minutes aren't there yet, but I do think that there is an opportunity for him to possibly get back into even more relevancy. See here, even if you look at the game style, right, Maddie, like New England's going to be playing behind the eight ball, and I think they're going to do a lot of hitting there. So I think the baseline for New England Free Jacks players is going to be pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think they're struggling putting up points. They're struggling getting scored on a lot. They're starting to kind of turn into the anthem of the league right now.
Yeah, it is definitely something to note. Outside of that, I will say it's again 6 team league. It's hard to kind of pinpoint on many of these waiver wire pickups, but hey, just hovering over the 50%, like Jacob Norris is a guy, Maddie, that we picked up that has had double digit tackles. Like definitely check out if Norris is there. And again, there's a reason why it's a whole bunch of free jacks guys that are now sitting on your waiver wire. And the guys that were there that were available, guys like Patty Ryan, guys like even Lance Williams are guys that are left and gone off the waiver wire. Scrum half, what is your thoughts here?
Halfback.
Or I should say halfback, correct? What are your thoughts here on buying in on Ruben DeHaas?
I mean, look, he's
Chicago,
he's gonna be yes, he's on Chicago. I think he's gonna have his up and down games. I think we've always seen him have up and down games. I think at a halfback position, if you've got nothing else that you can do, yeah, it might be an option for you just to pick up. Maybe he does go off, maybe he doesn't. But I don't think he's the guy that's gonna end up being kind of a league winner.
DeHaas or Hilsenbeck?
Hilsenbeck just got booted in the face, so
I did finish the
probably
game
not him.
though. Did finish the game. DeHaas or Cardi?
DeHaas.
Okay. Right. I mean, obviously that question between Hilsenbeck and DeHaas is definitely more skewed had um, kicking points be mattering here, but I do think DeHaas has a pathway here to be a very fantasy relevant. He's not gonna, again, to your point, Maddie, he's not gonna be a league winner, but I think he's a guy that can definitely suffice for you at that halfback position, and he's my pickup of the week this week. All right, rounded out here, the center position. We go down the list. It's a hard, barren place to look at, but again, I would take a flyer on Cash Maluia to see how that center position, like, is it worth, Maddie, to hold two positions? Like, let's say you drafted Nick Chan, like. I would be putting Cash Maluia there, right? Like Cole Simu is a guy that's 75% owned, but like if Cash Maluia at any point has found his way into the starting role here for California, he's going to pay dividends.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, what else are you gonna do? We there's It's tough. It's slim pickings out here. Like there's only so many guys that are under 50%.
Yeah, no, it is true. I would say honestly, at this point, are you okay with dropping? He was my obviously big pickup last week, but the red card obviously changes some of that. But Ben Lesage, is he a guy that you think at all is a guy that's worth dropping? I guess at this point, knowing he's going to be out a few matches.
I mean, he's only put up 4 points, so like,
I mean, just remember though, he negated 8 of that with the red card.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a tough one, but depends how much time we see him miss.
Drop Ben Lesage for Cash Maluia.
Mm, unless you're desperate.
Okay. All right. Back to reposition. Let's round it out here quickly. This is a little bit more, but for me, it's no question Corbin Smith. I know you
Mm.
have Rory Van Voot there, but Corbin Smith, like, I mean, he looked incredible. And California looked the best they had all season long with him at the fullback position. So if you're a Rory Van Voot owner, I would definitely pick up Corbin Smith just as insurance to see what plays out in the lineup coming up this week. Um, but yeah, I would 100% pick up Corbin Smith here as my top pickup of the week.
Yeah, I mean, tough not to. He had a good week for him, so we'll be
Yeah.
interested to see what the lineups look.
Max Schumacher is still at 50% owned. Max Schumacher or Corbin Smith?
Schumacher.
Schumacher. All right, cool. Sounds good. Well, that's our waiver wire breakdown. Good stuff. Again, it only gets harder and harder as the season goes on, slimmer and slimmer pickings, but you can find treasure in the heap of, I don't know what I'm trying to say, the heap of garbage that sometimes is out there in the fantasy sense, especially with 6 teams. Just got to look hard for it. But I think my biggest pickup now, looking through it, Piers Von Daddelson. I think that's going to be a solid second row pickup with that eligibility changing. All right, let's get into now a quick look ahead to the week 5 matchups.
Rucking Rundown.
All right, time for our episode 187 Rucking Rundown. And Maddie, you're in the lead here, buddy.
Yeah.
You had a perfect. Did you have a perfect pick last week? No,
Who
you had
knows?
2 and 1. Tough. You and I are tied. Vandy is I believe also uh even at the bottom there. So got to look out here for that. But let's quickly run through these picks here. And it starts off on Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern time. The Seattle Seahawks take on the Chicago Hounds. This one's an easy pick for me. It's Chicago. I get Seattle's at
Yep.
home. But I mean, I play all your Chicago guys until you are told differently. Is there anyone though that you're concerned with Seattle out there with them going against Chicago, like
No, no concerns. Yeah, I'll go Chicago as well.
Chicago as well in this one? All right. At this point, is there any guys that you're benching on Seattle that you don't feel
Nope.
good about anymore? No. Okay. All right. Second matchup here, the Free Jacks versus Anthem Rugby Carolina on Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Um, when is this going to turn around? Not too sure, but we'll see. They do have a home game here. They take on Anthem Rugby Carolina. Maybe this is me buying it again, but I'm buying into Anthem Rugby Carolina for this matchup here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go New England Free Jacks. I think they figure it out this game. So yeah.
Okay. There you go. New England for Matthew there. Old Glory DC California Legion here to round out the week. This one's going to be an interesting one because I think these are two teams that people are having a hard time buying into, and I think this will
Mm.
tell a lot into that. I've been on this California train for a bit here, and I've been trying to pick them and buy into them, and I'm going to do that again this weekend, despite them having to go out east to take Old Glory DC on in their first home matchup of the year. But either way, I think this one's going to be a fun fantasy matchup to have. And out of all the matchups, outside of having Chicago guys against Seattle, this is the one where I'm happy with having guys on both sides because I think this one may turn out to be a shootout.
Yeah, it's possible for sure. I'm gonna pick Old Glory DC. I think they continue their momentum.
All right, only agreeing on Chicago on this one, similarly to last week. We'll see how that shakes out. Me and Maddie tied for this one. Pretty good stuff. All right, let's round out the show here. Just talking about a quick tip here in lieu of Vandy's spot here about TFR Betting Challenge.
TFR Betting Challenge.
All right, TFR Betting Challenge. I was riding a high. I felt
Mm.
good, and now I don't feel so good.
Mm.
Anthem Rugby Carolina buying into that as them being underdogs, which I did was on last show. If they're underdogs, I'm hammering that. So spoke true to my word. However, they let me down in what was probably the most important week in my opinion. Either way, Vandy's now winning. He's made about he's plus $8 on the season. I have now dropped into the negatives at -5. Heading into this week, we've changed the kind of the with the lines coming out the day of. Vandy and I spoke about it last week. This is how we're kind of implementing how we're going to look at this week. My big tidbit again is going to be seeing where the line now comes with the New England Free Jacks, right? Against Chicago, Chicago was only 5.5 favorites. It's going to be interesting to see is like Anthem came in as underdogs here. Are they finally going to be the favorites coming into this one, or is there's going to still be residuals on New England? That's the line, the game that's looking the most interesting to me. I know I said it last week, but if Anthem Rugby Carolina comes in as underdogs, I do feel like that is going to be my pick of the week. Old Glory DC California Legion, this is the one for me. I am staying away from that matchup because I had no idea what to expect in that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, but you kind of want to stay away from those ones for the betting challenges. No, stay away from the ones you don't know what the heck's going to happen to them.
That's what I'm saying. I'm staying away from Old Glory DC California
Yeah,
Legion.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
No, you're right. We
I
state the
don't know.
obvious here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. That
That's
wins
what
me
we're
a
doing
lot.
today.
That's what we're due. All right. Well, hey, we'll see what the picks come in. Again, we'll have that posted. And Vandy, doing a good job of putting his money where his mouth is on this one. Either way, Maddie, hey, good episode. Flew through this
Good stuff.
in different spots, but able to get this all done. And yeah, fun week of rugby. And we got another fun week of rugby coming up as well. Anything you have to say for the people as you continue to try to turn around this year? I will give a shout out to Andrew Coe, who did beat us in the OG League here in this one.
Mm.
Felt tough. OG League 1-1. But I did kick Vandy's butt here in the Listener League. 2-0 right now, beating the
Mm.
defending champ.
Yeah, just be better than I am right now. That's it.
There you go. Couldn't say it better yourself. That's pretty good advice, Manny. All right. For Matt Yee, for Devin Vandy Vanderpool, I am Ryan Yee, and we'll see you next week on another episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.